economic recovery and growth plan of President Muhammadu Buhari. Those of you who listened to his New Year address on the 1st of January of this year will recall the details of projects spanning infrastructure, containing power infrastructure particularly, which my ministry was charged to advance and to complete with vigor.
Transmission has been scattered, distribution is not working, and generation is not working. Generation was only about 3,500, transmission was 5,500, and distribution was also about 3,000. As at today, as at December, when the last simulation was done, TCN transmission had a capacity of 7,124. And after that, we have added so many other substations. And generation was 7,000 megawatts, and distribution, if you look at last time we had a peak, distribution was 5,224. So that's tell you how the minister has transformed the sector.
The minister later commissioned the project and handed it over to the Anyogbure of Ikorodu, Kabiru Shotobi, who promised to ensure the safety of the substation to fast-track social-economic development of the area. The member representing the area in the House of Representatives, Jimmy Benson, thanked the government for bringing the substation, which he says will impact positively on the Ikorodu Industrial Estate, which it exclusives is the largest in West Africa.
When I came in here, this is the largest industrial estate in the whole of West Africa. And we can get value from this enormous community, what we have been endowed. I want to make a plea how they can do the road for them so that we can get the benefit of having the industry situated here.
This transmission station, and I'm sure it will bring 24-hour power to our federal constituency.
The substation is expected to help in evacuating about 90 megawatts of electricity for distribution for the people of Odoguyon and adjoining communities.
Staying with the power sector, efforts aimed at building up the nation's transmission capacity have continued apace, with the commissioning of the Ejigbo and Akanga power transmission substations also in Lagos State. Stakeholders say the new substations are a game changer for electricity consumers in the area.
The need to provide electricity in households, office and business areas in Nigeria for the comfort of Nigerians is the assurance of the Buhari-led government through new power system installations geared towards providing quality services to the people. The federal government provision of funds for the Transmission Company of Nigeria through its Ministry of Power to embark on expansion projects across the country is already strengthening transmission capacity to aid the increase in power supply. It is good news that the President Muhammadu Buhari administration is making efforts to boost power supply nationwide in the next 1 year with the renewal of power equipment to increase transmission capacity.
In the past 1 year, we have been doing a lot of reinforcement projects. We have a lot of rehabilitation projects, those that have been completed, those that are still on the way.
When all these efforts are put in place, cumulatively, at the end of the day, Nigerians will experience improved power.
At Ejigbo 132 by 33 kV substation, the capacity is presently 250 MVA. With the commissioning of a 100 MVA transformer, the capacity would increase to more than 300 MVA, with mobile transformers presently bridging the gap when the need arises.
This station is part of the national grid because we link to 3 different power stations, Egbi, Omotosho, and Olorun Shogo. So once power is generated there, they will send it to us through the grid. Then from here, we now send it to Sakete and some distribution companies, about 3 of them, are fed from this location.
At any point in time, we monitor, we have operators that are on duty 24 hours to ensure that at every point in time, the customer, which is in this case the distribution company, get the required supply, or the power they required.
As 260 MVAs have been added with ongoing 300 MVA on the site, the Akongba and virtually all the substations are witnessing consistent increase in capacity.
Been operating on 3x60 MVAs, but since this administration started, we've been given additional 2x60 MVA. And with this additional, we have been able to introduce about 4 33 kV feeders with the newly installed 33 kV switchyard. So since this administration started, we have been able to extend this very one. And right now, we still have room for spare feeders, up to about 8 outgoing feeders that are yet to be loaded by the district.
Inspecting all the newly installed transformers, representatives of the Transmission Company of Nigeria have this to say.
Presently, we have 5 numbers, 60 MVA at the 132, which is 300 MVA. 5 numbers, 60 MVA at the 132, as against the 120 we used to have when we started operations here. And we have so many feeders now. So many. We have about 22, 33 kV outgoing.
This transformer is the newest in the station. It's a 300 MVA transformer which is used to increase the capacity of this station. Before now, all the 5 transformers in the station are overloaded. So the authority deemed it fit to increase so that the capacity can increase and will stop this overloading of the transformer. In essence, we are now giving more power to all the stations, all the city, town, states that are collecting supply from us in this station.
Stakeholders emphasize the need for the distribution companies to recapitalize their network so that they can deliver uninterrupted power supply to the people of Nigeria.
On the transmission side, we have the capacity to transmit above 7,000 megawatts now, but we are looking far beyond that. So in the transmission side, we are ready. But transmission is not existing alone. When you talk of power sector, you have the generation, you have transmission and the distribution. So you discover that, in fact, as long as transmission is concerned, we are ready.
While TCN is maintaining power systems nationwide, the federal government is also constructing a chemical laboratory for the Nigerian Electricity Management Services Agency to ensure materials used for maintenance of transformers are of the right quality and specifications.
Impact is to ensure that, one, there is safety of life and property. There is safety to ascertain the incipient faults on the transformer before it starts, because the transformer oil we analyze is like the lifeline of the transformer.
The transformer is in service, it's working. So the function of the silica gel is to allow the air to pass through it before getting into the transformer. Why is air moving? The ambient temperature within the transformer, it changes as it's working and with the environment. When there is a higher temperature, the oil inside increases in volume, sort of. So we leave a little space in the conservator tank, just a spare tank for extra oil. So the oil will rise there instead of spilling out or there being excess pressure within the transformer tank. Now when the temperature comes down, the air will go down and the air needs to be replaced, balancing the pressure, so no excess pressure. So when the air is returning inside, it passes through the silica gel. All this moisture in the environment will not be able to pass in with it. The moisture is bad for our windings and the working parts of the transformer to increase the working life of the transformer.
The power transmission equipment installed include transformers, protective devices, metering circuits, as well as state-of-the-art control panels to facilitate the wheeling of more reliable power to the distribution companies and the people of Nigeria.
If you were just joining us, the program is Infrastructure Weekly, where we take a closer look at the infrastructure development agenda of the Buhari administration. For comments, feedback and inquiries, you can reach us on facebook.com/Infrastructure Weekly and on Twitter at infra_weekly. Join us after this break for a look at development in the road sector. Welcome back. The Ibadan-Oyo-Ogbomoso-Ilorin Road is a major artery of the road linking the southwest to the northern parts of the country through Jeba to Mokwa and other parts of the country. But for many years, due to traffic and the state of the road, many travelers and road users have always taken longer alternative routes to get to their destinations. With the award of the road by the Obasanjo government in the early part of his first term as president, many thought their suffering on the road would become a thing of the past. Though it took longer for the Ibadan-Oyo section and the Ogbomoso-Ilorin section to be completed, the longer section of the road, the Oyo-Ogbomoso stretch, was left unawarded until the advent of the Jonathan government. But since then, it was left without funding. But now, the case is different. Let's take a look at the present situation of the road.
The Ibadan-Oyo dual carriage road, as completed, is the first phase of the Ibadan-Ilorin route to be constructed by the federal government. The second phase is the Oyo to Ogbomoso end, falling between kilometer 43 and 95. After initial abandonment, contractors are massively back on site to get the road delivered.
It's a virgin land where we are putting the road. So the activity starts from clearing. After the clearing, then you do the earthwork to formation level. After the formation level, you put the sub base, you put the base course, then you put the wearing course. You put the bander course before the wearing course. That is what we want to achieve on this road.
The construction, which is at different stages, is experiencing steady progress from clearing, artwork, sub-base, base costs, and the wearing costs. Rock blasting is also ongoing to connect the roads.
It's going to at least reduce the incessant accidents that happen on the old road. Because it's like on a weekly basis you have breakdown on that road that people may have to stay like 3-4 days not able to pass through that road. If we are here like on Wednesday or Tuesday, that's what I'm talking about. That people had to divert into this route to be able to, have their way and to go away. So that is one. Then the second one is that it's going to reduce the traveling time for people because this is a dual carriageway. And another one is a single lane where vehicles, face each other. So when you have a dual carriageway, you don't have any vehicle facing you. You can move as you like. It's going to make traveling between Lagos and the north very easy. Very, very easy because this road is a trans-Saharan road, at least from the southwest to the north.
Residents of Ilupeju area of Oyo town appreciate the work of the federal government while seeking speedy completion of the projects.
We really thank our government for allowing this project. Actually, it's open. It's open like this. But many of after they have started this construction, many of the peoples are being moved to this area. even the transport is very going through.
Section 2 starts from 43 to 95. But as I speak with you, we are between 48 and 49 now. This location we are standing, you know. So this is about 5 kilometers from the beginning. That's the location that we are now. The work is progressing. As we go along the road, you see what we are doing.
With the completion of the Oyo-Bomosho end, the Trans-Sahara Road will be connecting Lagos from the southwest to the northern part of the country.
Thanks for staying tuned. For comments, inquiries and feedback, join us on facebook.com/Infrastructure Weekly and on Twitter @infra_weekly. Join us after this break for a look into the National Housing Program in both Edo and Delta State. Don't go away.
Coming together of opportunities, and this is what
infrastructure is the backbone of development, which explains the Buhari government's effort at bridging the facility gap. Infrastructure Weekly is a television package designed to bring you latest information on hundreds of development projects going on in various sectors all over the nation.
There is no state in Nigeria today where you will not see our contractors busy at work.
Power generation, rural electrification, road rehabilitations, national housing scheme, construction of roads and rail lines across the country, you name it.
We are now able to produce 7,000 megawatt of power. That is no longer debatable.
Infrastructure Weekly is Nigerians working together for a better Nigeria. So be better informed to take better informed decisions. Watch Infrastructure Weekly, showing on Channels Television, Thursdays 2:30 p.m., NTA Network Wednesdays 5 p.m., and CoreTV News Fridays at 8 p.m. Infrastructure Weekly, making development known.
The National Housing Program, currently on in 33 states, has reached an appreciable level in both Edo and Delta State and has also helped in empowering local communities, artisans and others. Let's take a listen to the impacts the program is making on the local economy in both states.
The ongoing national housing program by the federal government in Benin, Edo State, is generating over 3,000 employments for skilled and unskilled workers, including contractors, artisans, building material suppliers, block molders, as well as empowerment to families within the locality and Nigeria at large. Julius Ibekwe is a beneficiary and his wife a food vendor at the site. Regina Ibekwe commends the federal government for creating means of livelihood for some of them through the project, while stating that she earns about 35,000 naira daily. The Ibekwe couple has generated money to take care of their children's education and also bought a land to build their own house.
I benefited very well. So my wife is selling here. She's making money. I am working for them very well. Their things are not losing, so the community is good also. They are not coming here to take what does not belong to them.
I thank God for giving me opportunity this hour to speak. I thank God as open here for me, and they say well, and that they use the money where I say here they train my children. I thank God for the good thing where una do for me. God go bless una. Here open and they make our area to open. It make the village open more.
The 64-unit housing project is located at Edumwen, Eigie, along Benin-Auchi Road in Umwode local government area of the state. During an inspection tour by the Ministry of Power Works and Housing, site managers say the ongoing project has about 12 different contractors and is at 80% completion stage.
The quality is good. Specification is very good, and the bottom line of this project is that we are using everything we are using is from Nigeria. Nothing is imported. From the cement to the doors, they are all locally made.
Since we have been working, we employ so many people, and then the atmosphere is good. We are enjoying the work.
My income has enhanced, and I've had the opportunity to also get more experience as it has to do with house building.
I am a carpenter here, and with the work I am doing here, I feed my family and pay my children's school fees, so I thank God.
Road construction is also ongoing at the site for easy access to the housing estate, which will in turn boost economic activities in the state.
The project is ongoing. By the special grace of God, as you can see, the work is moving. Okay. My equipments are here. We have been able to clear the site, and we're facing the topsoil on the site. As soon as we evacuate the topsoil, then filling is the next.
The National Housing Estate in Aniola North Local Government Area of East Sele Azagba, Delta State, has 68 units of residential buildings and a condominium of 24 units. It has created over 1,000 employment opportunities for the people, and the construction of houses also includes schools and recreation centers.
We are doing this project for the benefit of the public. The benefit is twofold. There's economic benefit on the workers, the community, the contractors, and even the staff, in-house staff, because everything is local content, 100%.
It's need for us to provide adequate security here. So we have to meet with the police and with the SSS. But for now, there's no security situation in this place. This place is peaceful, and that's why you can see workers working conveniently without any problem.
The electrical infrastructure contractor is already on course. This estate is going to have a good electrical distribution system comprising of transformers, overhead distribution unit, street lighting. So when you
are YouTube to see all.
Every story appears ordinary until you see the core side of it.
If what you're looking for is a story behind the news, we bring it to you.
From Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides on political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Hello everyone and welcome to CoreTV Primetime News. I'm Emmanuel Ajayi. Our top stories tonight. Many thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with this story as the House of Representatives Committee on Appropriation has finally laid the 2018 appropriation bill of 9,120,334 naira and 80,225 naira only before the House at plenary. The figure showed an increase of over 5 billion naira as presented to the joint session of the National Assembly by President Muhammadu Buhari on November 7, 2017. And away from that, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, has urged the judiciary to critically stakeholders and partner in the war against corruption to continue to collaborate with the executives to bring corruption persons to book. The President said these are the commissioning of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission headquarters in Abuja. Our State House correspondent, Ayobami Pashe, has details in this report.
The war on corruption is not an easy one to fight because it affects so many different branches of our lives, so much that some people do not even consider breaking trust is anymore a crime. It has become the norm. That is why we must fight this attitude and encourage Nigerians to change their attitudes and perspectives. These were the words of President Muhammadu Buhari at the commissioning of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission headquarters in Abuja, as he called on the legislature to add more verve to the determination of the government to rid the nation of corruption.
But structures are not the whole story. We must change our ways of handling public trust. Corruption not only kills governments, but it destroys societies. It is a major reason why we are struggling with basic developmental issues that other comparable nations have long overcome.
Speaker of the House of Representatives Yakubu Dogara spoke on behalf of the legislature.
The fact that we have seated before here a president who also has won global acclaim as being corrupt-free. And I can tell you that he is not alone in Nigeria. There are millions of Nigerians that we come across day by day that are corrupt-free.
Acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ibrahim Magu, said the world-class facility is a commitment to anti-corruption crusade, while reiterating the recoveries made for the federal government are being remitted.
The Nigerian populace must take ownership of the fight against corruption. And we at the forefront in the EFCC will form a federal branches in accordance with the rule of law in order to ensure that there is no hiding place for the corrupt.
In company of acting chairman of the EFCC, Ibrahim Magu, President Muhammadu Buhari later took a tour around the new ultra-modern office of the EFCC as the chairman appeals to Nigerians, the judiciary and the National Assembly to join hands in the fight against corruption. From the Presidential Villa, Abuja, Ayobami Kwashe, reporting for CoreTV News.
The federal government says it did not send any delegation to the opening of the American embassy in Jerusalem on Monday, contrary to a media report. A source within the presidency added that the federal government had written a leading foreign news organization, Al Jazeera, for a retraction of the story which he described as false. The source, which spoke on condition of anonymity, said the listed of Nigeria as one of the countries present was erroneous and misleading. A top presidency official says Nigeria was not present at the event during which United States officials relocated its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem on Monday, contrary to the media reports. The source, who spoke to journalists in Abuja on Tuesday on condition of anonymity, said the federal government had written to a foreign news medium, Al Jazeera, demanding a retraction of its story that listed Nigeria as one of the countries represented at the event. In an effort to curb illegal bunkering in maritime domain, the Nigerian Navy says it is increasing Falcon System 1 from 9 sites to 12 sites. The Chief of Naval Staff, Ibok Ite Ibas, made this known at the addressing of journalists on the activities lined up for the 62nd anniversary of the service and the Nigerian Navy Week. Our correspondent, Kikelo Mokeri, has more details.
The Chief of Naval Staff was represented by the Chief of Transformation says the additional Falcon Eye is to enhance surveillance coverage of the entire nation's maritime domain with more effective checks on criminalities on the waterways.
The Nigerian Navy is working towards increasing its Falcon Eye system from 9 sites to 12. When completed, these facilities will enable the Nigerian Navy expand its surveillance coverage of the entire Nigeria's maritime domain with more effective check on various illegalities in our waters.
Fleet recapitalization has been a top priority of the Nigerian Navy. It says the service has acquired 173 boats in the last 1 year, which has helped in bolstering the capacity of the service to police and carry out survey in the Nigerian maritime domain.
The Navy has adopted a double-pronged strategy towards achieving this objective. On one hand, ships are being acquired from some foreign countries, while on the other hand, the Nigerian Navy is complementing with local construction of ships and boats. In addition, defective Nigerian Navy ships are being refitted at the naval dockyard Limited in Victoria Island, Lagos, and also the Naval Shipyard Limited, which is in Port Harcourt.
It therefore pledged the commitment of the service to protect the nation's maritime domain from all forms of threat in the country's interest. The Nigerian Navy Week celebration and 62nd anniversary celebration will commence in the last week of May and end in June 2018 with the theme Enhancing an Integrated Maritime Strategy for Security in the Gulf of Guinea. Kikelomo Okere, CoreTV News, Abuja.
The federal government has announced a 10 billion naira victim resettlement fund to cater for the displaced victims of herdsmen onslaught in Benue State. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo announced the federal government intervention while on a 2-day working visit to Benue State for on-the-spot assessment on the crisis as it affects the people. Our correspondent Akume Tias tells us more in this report presented from our studios.
It is the first day of the 2-day state visit of Vice President Yemi Osinbajo to Benue State. On arrival at the Makurdi airport, the Vice President is received by top dignitaries of the Benue State government, led by the State Governor Samuel Otom. After the pleasantries, the Vice President, in company of the Governor and other dignitaries, proceed to Abagene camp, which houses over 34,000 internally displaced persons. At the camp, the Vice President take out time to inspire the children with the popular song. After that, he turns to the people and appeals to the IDPs, enjoining them to remain calm as the government is working to improve on the welfare and ensure they safely return home.
The Food Security Council has approved some money already, which is to be used to rebuild places that have been destroyed, not just in Benue State, but in other states where there has been destruction. Of 10 billion naira has been made available for that. Not only for Benue State. Senator, not only Benue States too. Okay. All right, so we intend to begin to do this work as quickly as possible so that you can return to your homes and you can build your lives again.
Governor Sam Holton expressed the gratitude of the state to the Vice President for coming to Benue State so he could see things for himself.
We are saying that a word from you will get the people go back to their homes. I remember that the last time I spoke to Mr. President, he told me that as soon as the report of the committee is ready, he will direct that provision be made for our people to be rehabilitated, because he's aware from the pictures he has seen that most of them will not have any shelter to accommodate them.
The Vice President lent a listening ear to the internet displaced persons at the camp as they narrate the ordeal to him, calling on him and the presidency to come to the rescue.
And away from that, the Coalition of Civil Society Organizations on Human Rights and Conflict Resolution in Nigeria has released a report on the review of incidents of terrorism in Nigeria. Officials of the Human Rights Coalition who met this presentation in Abuja also cautioned some non-governmental organizations against making utterances that are capable of escalating the situation. Our correspondent, Basilo Kafo, has a report.
Nigerian soldiers for some years now have been battling with the war against Boko Haram insurgents, especially in the northeast of the country. In the course of prosecuting the war, international human rights organizations such as Amnesty International had in its report accused soldiers of rights violation, but officials of this human rights coalition, in a report they released, say they monitored troops closely in their operations and came to a conclusion that the soldiers observe rules of engagement and compliance with international best practices, contrary to reports by non-governmental organizations.
The threats against peace and security in Nigeria originate not just from the Boko Haram terrorist group, but also from organizations that hide under humanitarian intervention to tactically support terrorists against the Nigerian military. There is an urgent need for organizations indicted in this report to be warned to desist from executing agendas that do not conform to the principles and purposes of the United Nations.
The group also wants the federal government to always be proactive in forestalling terrorist activities in the country.
Their effort is not really, the way it should come, because I know it's something that they can finish in a day. But you don't just go about shooting people. Some of them might not be the suspect that you think.
According to the officials of the group, the coalition arrived at the conclusion of the report released after a careful analysis of the situation, visitation of IDPs camps by experts in internal armed conflict resolution. Basil Okafor, CoreTV News, Abuja.
And still ahead on CoreTV Primetime News, the federal government has stepped up its campaign against polio. Details of this report and many other reports after this break. Join us again.
For every human need, there is a solution.
You can now watch CoreTV News live from anywhere in the world on our website, www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
Hello and welcome to CoreTV Primetime News broadcast.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click CoreTV, leave a space, then News. CoreTV News, our 24-hour news station.
Hi, I am Anete Patrick, host of your program Abuja Today, that brings you highlights of happenings in Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory from the Office of the Federal Capital Territory Administration.
I appeal to all of us citizens, leaders, politicians, and all to support this team to be able to restore the Abuja Master Plan.
Primetime News. Before we continue tonight, a quick reminder of our top stories. For more news and other stories, do visit our social media platform, facebook.com/CoreTV News. And you can also join the conversation on Twitter at CoreTV News NG. On Instagram, CoreTV News. Watch our videos on YouTube, youtube.com/CoreTV News NG. We move on now. Following the recent outbreak of Ebola virus in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Nigerian Senate has urged the Ministers of Interior and Health, Abdurrahman Dambazao and Isaac Adewale, respectively, to take precautionary measures to check the reintroduction of the disease into the country through land, sea, or the airports. The Senate also calls on the Minister of Health to galvanize health workers in readiness to combating the disease. Our correspondent, Chukau Dita, has details in this report presented from our studios.
These resolutions were reached after a point of order by Senator Oluremi Tinubu, who came under Order 42 and 52 to draw the attention of the Senate to Ebola disease currently ravaging Democratic Republic of Congo.
The Senate is further reminded that the DRC is 435 kilometers by air from Abuja, is easily accessible via a flight from Lagos that takes less than 3 hours. Senate notes also the report of the World Health Organization stating that Nigeria and other African countries are at modest risk of spread.
Other lawmakers who lend their voices to the motion also urged the Senate to quickly intervene to end the ongoing strike by some sections of the health worker in Nigerian hospitals.
Many health workers in our republic are on strike. And should there be the introduction of this viral problem into our country, we won't even have the health workers to attend to it. So I think because of the possibility of such a crisis, we must urge an immediate intervention in this long-lasting industrial action so that we will have the workers, God forbid, to attend to whatever health problem may arise in our republic.
That's had it. A few years ago, about 2013, 2014, we had it. And it was very, very dangerous. The entire nation was in trouble because it was spreading like wildfire from one state to another and killing people just like that. So when it was reported that this is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo again, believe you me, everybody, including my humble self, I was visibly worried.
DRC being a country in Africa with relationship with Nigeria in various aspects, it is important that we take this motion very seriously to ensure that Nigeria is not taken unawares again.
President of the Senate, Bukola Saraki, in his remark, advises Nigerians who travel to other countries to exercise caution to avoid being infected.
Health, to ensure alertness to combat diseases, whatever cases may arise, and get the Ebola vaccine ready for an emergency. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, urge Nigerians who travel to other African countries to ensure utmost level of care to avoid getting infected. Those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
After the outbreak of Ebola virus in Congo, the World Health Organization classified Nigeria and other countries in the African region to be at moderate risk of spread. Chuka Odita, CoreTV News, Abuja.
The federal government has stepped up its campaign against polio and other vaccine-preventable diseases during assuring Nigerians that the vaccines are safe and can save 4.6 million lives over the next 10 years. The Minister of Health, Isaac Adewale, gave the assurance in Abuja at a sensitization workshop on immunization. A correspondent, Basilo Kafo, has a report.
Health experts at this forum are worried over what they call low pace of immunization in Nigeria. Nigerian authorities say they are not leaving anything up to chance on the effort to eradicate vaccines-preventable diseases in the country. Though the Minister of Health at this sensitization workshop admitted that Nigeria is not doing well on immunization, but he wants Nigerians to be champions of immunization, assuring that vaccines are safe.
Vaccines are safe. They represent some of the wonders of our time. Safe, cheap, and effective.
As part of effort to take the immunization campaign to the communities, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency and the World Health Organization are partnering with the head of civil service of the Federation for civil servants to be part of the campaigners. The stakeholders are convinced that routine immunization saves lives and keeps people and communities healthy, and they want the message to spread to the grassroots.
Ensuring that when civil servants go back for vacation or they go for weekend in their communities, that they are going to the primary healthcare centers and asking questions about how the primary healthcare services can be improved. How can immunization be improved in these communities?
42% of the reasons were due to lack of awareness. So it shows that we really need to find ways to communicate to the communities about the benefits of vaccination, why they need to vaccinate, not just for themselves, but also for their communities at large, to make sure we have healthy children.
Authorities here say disease eradication is possible with universal immunization. Basil Okafor, CoreTV News, Abuja.
And still on health matters, as the strike embarked upon by the members of the Joint Health Sector Union, JOSU continues. Medical doctors in Ondo State say it is abnormal for the striking health workers to agitate for the same salary scale with them. At a news conference in Akure, the state capital, the doctor under the umbrella of Nigerian Medical Association NMA warned the federal government not to accede to such demand. And at a press conference in Akure, the Ondo State chairman of the Nigerian Medical Association, Bilela Dolani, said a situation where health workers demand the same wage with doctor is uncalled for.
On the ongoing nationwide strike embarked upon by the Joint Health Workers Union, JOSU, it's apparent that their demand for pay parity with the medical doctors, amongst others, is frivolous and absurd. At the point of entering into voyage of becoming a doctor or a health worker, the JAMB cutoff point marked for medicine and surgery is always the highest in this country and most countries of the world. This alone speaks volume that medical doctors are not at par with other health workers. Also, according to best global practices, there is nowhere in the world where medical doctors' pay is at par with other allied health professionals. It may interest you to know that members of this ignominious body called JOSU, that is the pharmacists, the nurses, the laboratory scientists, the health attendants, record officers, hospital secretaries, engineers, the accountants, etc., are currently not earning the same salaries. That is, there exists disparity even among them.
The Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, says effective maintenance is a veritable tool for national development. The minister, who was speaking at a forum in Lagos on effective maintenance of public utilities, says the Buhari administration has embarked on a paradigm shift in the last 3 years, promising that the trend will continue. Our correspondent Sheyi Fanimo has details in this report presented from our studios.
This is the first policy dialogue tagged effective maintenance as tool for national development, and speaking is the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola. His mission is to deliver the keynote address and give an update on the activities of the federal government in charting a path towards sustainable national development with maintenance of public utilities as a fundamental part of the process. The minister said the Buhari administration's move towards a paradigm shift in maintaining public utilities is yielding fruits. He says opportunities will open up for small businesses once the procurement law is amended.
In the last few days, there have also been rainstorms, and rainstorms have brought on collapsed electricity towers, trees have crashed into poles, lines have been damaged, but the Discos and Transmission Company of Nigeria have moved their men out to the field to start reviving, restoring, repairing damaged lines and poles. That is maintenance. To open up opportunities for those small businesses is to amend the procurement law.
For the convener of the dialogue, the nation was unprepared for its post-economic recession in living memory. He added that this led to challenges associated with revenue inflows and inflationary trends of products. He, however, called for the enactment of a sound public maintenance culture to put the nation on a path to sustainable development.
Now, we all know what happened to us in the last few years, where we tanked into a recession because of all the challenges that was associated with oil prices that went down. However, it became like a vicious cycle because we now had to use the little foreign exchange that we had or that we were getting to fuel our economy, to import gasoline and DPK and all of those type of things. Why?
He says a good maintenance policy will ensure that resources are not wasted on reconstruction of public utilities that could have been saved by better maintenance.
Because over the years, we have not maintained our refineries properly.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has called on governments of African countries to cooperate in tackling corruption and ensure the proper utilization of the recovery of assets for the benefit of the people. He made this call during the 8th Commonwealth Regional Conference for heads of anti-corruption agencies in Africa holding in Abuja. Our correspondent Folorunsho Adegoke tells us more.
The world is about to experience a climate change in the fight against corruption on the African continent, which the people of Africa must deal with. The theme of the 8th Commonwealth Conference of Anti-Corruption Agencies in Africa centers on partnering towards assets recovery and return. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says African governments need to fund anti-corruption agencies in order to combat corruption, foster assets recovery and return.
It is only through collective action that we can stay ahead of the criminal elements who rob our countries and our citizens of their present and their future. We must also work hard to build cooperation and mutual understanding with our global partners. We must insist that recovered stolen assets be returned to countries of origin without any preconditions, in line with Article 51 of the UNCAC.
The issue of tackling corruption should be at the forefront of efforts through cooperation by the African people in order to reduce the high rate of the tsunami of corruption faced globally.
We have to match our national, regional and Commonwealth responses to the rising incidence, and we need continually to improve and innovate, strengthening our capabilities and our cooperation.
The fact that the fight against corruption is central to the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is not accidental. That is what has defined the entire public lives of our first and second citizens.
Stakeholders urge participants, governments and anti-corruption agencies to help bring corrupt leaders to justice, recover looted funds and create a safe future for Africa.
We must really try to make sure that all our leaders, that are elected into office, they should check themselves to make sure that if they are there, let them earn what they get.
Our anti-corruption agencies must be at the center of that struggle. Of the struggle to make sure that we retain within our continent the resources that we need to address, as I was saying, those socio-economic development challenges.
And on behalf of the judiciary, I can only tell you that we are there to help to sustain the effort of not even eradicating, but bringing it down to the barest minimum.
Corruption is not just an affair of one country, but a case, a responsibility of a collective group of people.
Former Nigeria Head of State Abdulsalam Abubakar and the Commonwealth Advisor and Head, Public Sector Governance, agree with speakers that in line with global best practices, the African continent will overcome this issue of corruption and meet the expectations of its citizens. Folorunsho Adegoke, CoreTV News, Abuja.
The Code of Conduct Tribunal sitting in Abuja has discharged a Supreme Court judge, Justice Sylvester Nguta, of charges bordering on non-declaration of assets filed against him by the federal government. A member of the tribunal, Justice William Ateze, who delivered the ruling, stated that he is persuaded by the argument of the defendant that as a serving judicial officer is under the management, control and discipline of the National Judicial Council. In admitting the case against the judge, the tribunal relied on the Court of Appeal decision that discharged and acquitted a federal high court judge, Justice Ngajiwa, of corruption allegation on the same ground. The CCT cited Section 158, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution that any allegation of official misconduct against a serving judge must first be referred to the National Judicial Council, which has the powers to discipline errant judges. And away from that to political matters, now Governor of Kaduna State, Nasiru El-Rufai, has called on state governors and the federal government to adopt the electronic voting machine which was used to conduct the Kaduna local government polls. El-Rufai said the electronic voting can work at the national level, while also pointing out the total of 1.7 billion naira the Kaduna State government saved in printing ballot papers.
Proposed the idea of using electronic voting because she felt that since we used the card reader in the 2015 election, the logical next step is to connect the card reader to an electronic voting system, and we supported it. They went on a study tour to Brazil and to India to study their own voting systems, and finally ended up with a manufacturer in China, the same manufacturer that manufactured the card reader, designed and manufactured the electronic voting machines for us. The Independent Electoral Commission of Kaduna State brought in 300 of the machines and spent some months going around the state in marketplaces and people's homes to test the use of the machine to show that ordinary people can use it. And so that's how we adopted it. It cost us a lot of money. I think the entire election cost us something in the region of 4 billion naira. But mind you, with the electronic voting machine, we don't need ballot paper. So we saved 1.7 billion naira in ballot papers alone. I've just seen Mr. President. I've briefed him on this, and he has expressed his pleasure at the way and manner, as a party in Kaduna State, we allowed free and fair elections. The President believes in free, fair, credible elections, and he said it doesn't matter if you lose some local governments. What is important is that the elections should be free and fair. This is an APC government, it's a government of fairness and justice, and he was very happy with the way we conducted the elections in Kaduna so far.
Kaduna State Governor there, Nasiru El-Rufai. As the crisis that trailed the conduct of the All Progressives Congress World Congress in Imo State intensifies, a faction of the party has conducted another local government congress in the state. Imo State Governor Rachel Okorocha told his supporters that the National Working Committee will review the report of the appeal panel, adding that any congress held in the state will never hold water. Our correspondent Joseph Oliva has details in this report presented from our studios.
In Ehime Umbano and Isiala Umbano local government area of the Imo State, the All Progressive Congress APC faithful from this local government came out in their numbers to participate in the Congress. Senator Ifeanyi Ararume and other party chieftains expressed joy over the conduct of the exercise.
There is no doubt that the conference has been very, very successful. We're supposed to have finished it before 8:30, but being we're in Nigerian African time, that's why we are doing this thing by 9 o'clock. We are so happy. The people are so happy. I think the entire is so happy. They're happy. So I want to congratulate the ESCOs. I want to congratulate the Tabi Isiala Umbano for bringing on board a new ESCO that will stay for the next 4 years.
I'm overwhelmed as a leader in Isiala Umbano local government. I'm overwhelmed by the type of situation that is here today. Everybody has been so peaceful. I was here by 7:10 in the morning to witness the type of Congress we're going to have today. Somehow I was scared a little bit, but to God be the glory, everything has been so peaceful.
All of us, this party belongs to everybody, to all of us. And everybody has to make his or her contribution towards strengthening this our party, so that our party will be in the best position to elect councillors, to elect council chairmen, to elect house members, to elect National Assembly members, to elect governor in this state, and to elect our president in 2019.
Reacting to this development, Governor Rachel Okorocha told his supporters not to worry, as the party's National Working Committee will review the decisions of the appeal panel. According to him, any Congress held in the state is an exercise in futility.
There can never be local government Congress until we have done the World Congress. So you can't count two without counting one. So, but I want to thank you for your patience. I've informed the National Working Committee led by the chairman, John Oyebun, to do the needful and do what is right to avoid any crisis in Imo Police Pursuit Watch.
The governor, however, asked the supporters to remain law-abiding, peaceful, and avoid anything that will bring disorder in the state.
Still on political matters, as the People's Democratic Party, the All Progressives Congress APC, and the Social Democratic Party SDP in Ekiti State last week picked their governorship candidate in the keenly contested primaries. So candidates are also emerging in some other parties. With 24 hours to the submission of names of candidates, other parties have been on the move to ensure that preliminary election produce their candidates. The abundant Nigeria Renewal Party, ANRP, to the affair defeated Kazim Sanusi to emerge the candidate of the party and the flag bearer of the party in Ekiti State. In his acceptance speech, Tundiafe urged residents of the state to come together to support his aspiration, stressing that the PDP and APC have bastardized the economy of the state in the last 19 years.
This is just the end of the first process. The real work is just beginning. And I want to enjoy all of us. What we've done is good, but then we have to work harder so that our party can eventually win. And we trust God that by the year 2026, Ekiti will become the most desirable state to live in this country. I give you that promise because ANRP will do it. And I want to say that ANRP is starting from Ekiti to set the standard for good governance.
Returning officer there, Olubumi Owolabi. And away from political matters now, Benue State Governor Samuel Otom has presented staff of office to attend first-class chiefs in Benue State with a charge on traditional rulers to conduct themselves in a manner that will inspire public confidence. Otom also charged them to know their status, a demand that they should be cautious of the kind of social relationship they maintain to avoid compromise of their position. Our correspondent, Akumetias, tells us more.
While charging the first-class chiefs to accord due respect to the two paramount rulers in the state, the governor noted that the State Executive Council had approved the upward review in the remuneration of traditional rulers in the state to give the institution its well-deserved boost. According to him, it was government expectation that the Benue State Council of Traditional Rulers will be alive to its rule of promoting peace, unity, and harmony in the state.
I wish to very humbly and sincerely congratulate the 10 new first-class chiefs in whose honor we are gathered here today. These are 1. Do Sankara, His Royal Highness Abu King. 2. Toikwande, His Royal Highness Ambrose Pine Yotiel.
In an address, the CoreTV and Chairman Benue State Traditional Council of Chiefs, Professor James Ayate, said the traditional institution will continue to ensure fairness, equity, and justice to all issues. He stated that Governor Otom had made history by strengthening the traditional institution in the state, assuring that he will not be disappointed even as he pledged his support to the first-class chiefs.
I wish to assure the government under my chairmanship, the traditional institution in Benue State will remain neutral, will remain apolitical, and will remain fair in handling the affairs of our different communities that will run before us. We will do it with the fear of God.
Responding on behalf of the first-class chiefs that were presented with the staff of office to acquaint the Chief Ambrose Pine Yotiel, while I appreciate the governor for finding them worthy to serve in such capacities, promise to live with their subjects and build peace in their various domains. Akumeti of CoreTV News, Makudi.
And in news from outside Nigeria now, there have been angry exchanges between Israeli and Palestinian envoys at the UN as the diplomatic fallout over deadly violence in Gaza gathered pace. Some 58 Palestinians were killed when Israeli troops fired on protesters on Monday, with funeral held on Tuesday. The Palestinian envoy spoke of a crime against humanity while Israel accused the rulers of Gaza, Hamas, of taking their own people to hostage. This week was the culmination of a 6-week protest against Israel. Monday was the 70th anniversary and the founding of the State of Israel, and also the day the U.S. made controversial move of its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And thousands of people have taken to the streets of Turkey's largest city to protest against the U.S. decision to officially relocate its embassy from Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. At least 6,000 people converged at the central Istanbul to denounce the inauguration ceremony and the killing of at least 58 Palestinians by Israeli forces in Gaza in what marked the bloodless day in the besieged coastal enclave since 2014 war. A United Nations rights expert denounced Israel for using disproportionate use of force, while Amnesty International called on its horror to violate international law. The bodies of 20 Egyptians, Coptic Christians beheaded in Libya by ISIL in 2015 have been flown back to Cairo, the nation's capital of Egypt. The 2 young men were killed by fighters from Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, ISIL known as ISIS, a group in 2015 in the Libyan city of Sirte. Their bodies were found last year following the defeat of ISIL there. And that's it on CoreTV Primetime News. But before we go tonight, a quick reminder of our top stories. And on behalf of the entire production crew, I say many thanks for watching. I'm Emmanuel Ajayi. I'll see you again.
It is another package of Northern reports. Defection hits the APC in Kaduna State, where political parties unite for smooth elections at the local council level, while peace remains a factor desired by the people of Kaduna, Benue, and Plateau State. All of these in this edition of your favorite weekly program, Northern Reports. I am Usaitin Yosadibame, your anchor and guide on the next 30 minutes. Welcome back. The crack in the All Progressive Congress in Kaduna State has widened as a federal lawmaker dumps the party for the People's Democratic Party, pulling his structures of over 5,000 members out of the APC family. This is indeed some depletion of the APC population in Kaduna State.
That Nigerians want a positive change, and only PDP is there to provide them positive change. So we are hopeful, we are prayerful, we are going to work for it.
Kaduna State, which has in recent time assumed the status of a hotbed politically, is also rooting for peaceful conduct of the council's polls. While the ruling party is enmeshed in an internal crisis between its various factions, the state electoral body has called all the parties and other leaders of thought to a peace pact.
Kaduna State in the past has suffered series of ethno-religious, political and post-election crises, and the state is currently divided across religious lines, with Muslims in the north and Christians in the southern part of the state. Ahead of this Saturday's council elections, political parties, religious leaders, security agencies, as well as the media sign a peace pact to ensure a violence-free and acceptable local government pose. Though the ruling APC and the main opposition party, the PDP, were not present at the event. Factors to election violence.
Irate, restive and drug